Hello and welcome back to Talking Toilets, episode 2, a personal toilet. I'm still quite amazed that we're doing this and actually releasing them. I just wanted to say thank you very much on behalf of Will and I to everyone who's liked, listened, subscribed, commented, everything on all our socials and all our platforms. We're really, really grateful for you doing that, and we hope that, if anything, it's just going to take you through whatever place you're in during this this weird time. And we are looking forward so much to releasing our previously recorded before this all happened episodes with some guests in it. They're really good fun and they are coming, so do bear with. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. To all new listeners, please jump onto our socials and give us a like, give us a comment, share us if you'd be so lovely. We are at Talking Toilets _ on Insta and Twitter. We're at Talking Tea Podcast on Facebook, and you can email us at talkingtoiletspodcast@gmail.com if you've got something a bit longer or you want to send us money. Thank you all very much, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Enjoy. Keep flushing.
Talking Toilets with Alex Hope and William Smith.
Hello and welcome to Talking Toilets goes into lockdown for the second week. Woo! My name's William Smith. I'm currently based in Tufnell Park.
Still
in Tufnell Park. And slightly further north is...
me, Alex Hope, in East Finchley still.
Still in East Finchley.
Still here.
On this podcast, we discuss all things toilets. It's quite difficult at the current time to discuss toilets we're using, as really we should be using the same toilets consistently. Alex out on the road might use several toilets, although a lot of them are shut down. So yeah, this week we're going to discuss previous toilets we've used, toilets that we've lived with and grown to love or hate, and then we'll do toilet news bang in the middle.
Absolutely.
Have you had anything interesting happen to you toilet-wise out on the road, or...?
This week, I've been trying to branch out of the sort of run-of-the-mill service station toilet. It's still the case that people won't let you piss or shit in their warehouses when you're delivering to them, which is fair enough. But service stations still are kind of my normal go-to. They're usually quite eerie. They're usually quite sparse. Interestingly, what happened to me this week was I decided to go for a pee at the side of the road, which I generally don't do. The only place that you're kind of advised to piss is a parking bay.
I don't think you're ever advised to piss in public, are you?
That's a good point. I think it's illegal to do it on private or public property.
Everything's private or public.
I think that leaves common ground, doesn't it? Isn't common ground the one thing that isn't owned?
Fine. So did you piss in public or countryside? I
would say it would probably be common ground, because it was on the outskirts of a field, next to an A road, on a parking bay, but like off road of the parking bay, in the bush.
That's the end of my interrogation on the matter.
Thank you. Finally, I feel relieved. The reason I say it's of note is because the fields, when I urinate, that feeling of taking a step back from the mentalness and craziness.
Seems very freeing, I think, this idea. Cock out, just looking over the field and relieving yourself.
And maybe I got something from it. I don't quite know what it is.
Well, I don't know. There's something where, like, the polar opposite of the stress of needing to pee and there not being a toilet is being in the middle of a field, nothing but nature. There's this, tranquility and privacy, despite being in an area which you would seem very public.
Yeah.
I think it's lovely. It's the complete opposite to my experience this week, which has been, so like all the public toilets are closed. I completely understand that. That's absolutely correct. It's how it should be.
Apparently Brighton just closed theirs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, last week.
The ones on Hampstead Heath by Parliament Hill are currently going under renovation, which I think I mentioned in the last episode, which is a good time for them to go under renovation. But we're obviously now we're doing our, we're allowed out once a day to go do our exercise, which is very important. And I'm one of those suckers that have got into running. Today I went out and started my run, and I'd run further than I'd run for in years, I think, which is only a pathetic 5 kilometres. But during my run, I, naturally felt the need to pee. I was drinking a lot of water. It was incredibly sunny. And Hampstead Heath is kind of booming with people. There's just people everywhere. In fact, the only place where there weren't many people was the running track. And the running track is also a place where you've only got people that are running. It's very easy because you've got lines on the floor to give yourself that 2 metre distance.
It's like being at Tesco, basically, for anyone born in the last 5 years. A running track is like going to Tesco.
It's like going to Tesco. You've got you can see in front, you can see behind, you've got good spatial awareness, and everybody that's on the running track is there to do the same thing that you're doing and will respect you for doing it. Obviously, an entire Hampstead Heath filled with people lounging around, listening to music in groups. What do the police do? They come onto the running and kick us all off, even though we're actually doing the only thing that we're meant to be doing. And I understand that, this is a contained track which says it's closed with a fence about as high as your knee, so you can just walk over it.
This isn't the reason that they kicked you off, because this isn't your toilet story, is it? You didn't do you didn't do a Paula Radcliffe on us, did you, Will?
No, I was kind of setting up the idea that, Hampstead Heath was filled with people. There were a lot of people around, and I had decided to go on the running track even though I wasn't meant to avoid all the people. I'm then kicked off it along with 10 other runners onto the main, so there are more people in Hampstead Heath now because there are less people on the running track. Anyway, so I'm running around and I'm like, I need to pee. I'm running up the hill to get to the top of Parliament Hill Field or whatever, so you can have that lovely view. As my heart rate goes down, the need to pee intensifies, and I suddenly kind of realise I'm surrounded by people still, and I know that the public toilet is... Anyway, my mission is to try to find a nice, calm, relaxing place where I can pee, very similar to what you did. And on a normal walk, on a normal before Corona day, this would be very easy to do.
Pre-runs.
But for some reason, it was impossible. So I finally found this really nice... I'm running down... because obviously I'm still running because I'm trying to get home as fast as I can if I can't find anywhere to pee. I'm running down this track, and then I suddenly see this kind of, group of trees with, not a clear path. So I walk in there, and then suddenly I see a football, and I'm like, oh, cool, somebody's left a football here. No, they haven't left a football here. It's 2 kids playing football in this little kind of enclosed area, probably hiding from the police.
Right.
Okay, fine, great. So I then leave that area, and I then run to the other side of Hampstead Heath in search of somewhere to pee.
So my question to you is, you'd done how long on the running track before you were kicked off?
Today, like 2.5 kilometres?
3 kilometres, which is probably around the same sort of distance that the park is, like from top to bottom, around about.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
About 2 miles. So then, when you were searching to go to the toilet, you said you went from one side of the heath to another, which is about a mile and a half.
Correct.
So just looking for the toilet, you were travelling around the entire heath.
Correct.
Keep going. Let me find out how long it took you.
There's a side of the heath which is kind of nearer the pond's kind of Highgate entrance. There's a few benches, and then it goes off into what is forest, is kind of like uncharted territory. So this was the area that I then started to, think, 100%, this is where I can pee. So I go into this area, I go past all the benches, and I go in, to what you would imagine would be a haven of pissing possibilities. And I discover a very nice book club, which was lovely.
Oh, lovely. Illegal, but yeah, lovely.
What I kind of decided was that my need and urgency for peeing was...
outweighed great works of literature.
Precisely.
So who got it in the neck? Was it Jules Verne?
No, I walked around the book club and kind of went into a corner behind a tree where I very clearly pissed, and then unashamedly walked back round and wished them all a good day, and then continued on my run. But yeah, the walking and running period of trying to find a place to relieve my need for peeing was probably greater. The distance of that was probably greater than that of my
than
actual
what you'd
run.
done on the track, so it was extensive. But I mean, it's good exercise. I count every single movement I make as exercise.
This is the section where we do toilet news, where we talk about what's new with toilets out there in the world. Magic Toilet could monitor users' health, says researchers. So, I mean, this is awesome. A smart toilet boasting pressure sensors, artificial intelligence, and a camera has been unveiled by researchers who say it could provide a valuable way to keep tabs on our health. It's phenomenal. I mean, they've created a toilet which they hope will eventually become a daily clinic, helping in the prevention and early detection of problems from diabetes to urinary tract infections and inflammatory bowel disease. My favourite thing about this entire article is the concept of anal prints. Did you see that bit?
I did see that bit.
Because if you and I are both using the same toilet, it's unnecessary for it to kind of combine both of our data because, you know, we both have very different pooing diaries.
Exactly. Diaries, entries, and diets, in a way.
Yeah, and the fact that our arseholes both have an anal print, so, you know, similar to a fingerprint, so can I immediately identify and collect data for each of us instead of collectively?
Just for clarity, we're talking about the print of what comes out of the arsehole, not necessarily what our arsehole looks like.
No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about what the arsehole looks like.
Be good for clarification in that instance.
So let me read the article.
But then, how are you meant to get a print of your arsehole?
So, perhaps most inventively, the team reports that the system detects who is using the toilet from a fingerprint scanner on the flush handle and anal prints, distinctive creases in the lining of the anus captured by video frames.
Okay, cool. Didn't get that.
So it links up your fingerprint from the flusher to anal creases on your anus to know who it is they're compiling the data from.
I've got an image in my head of like a mid-90s or mid-noughties spy thriller with kids in it, like Spy Kids. And you know, at the bit where they're kind of introducing the bad guy, it's a classic trope of spy films, in that they have to like show the worst villain on a screen by their fingerprint and all their stats and stuff. And I'm just imagining it kind of in a Minority Report way, sort of flashing up in front of someone's face. But instead of just the picture of them in a mugshot, it's them and then their arsehole and then their fingerprint.
Well, it's like there is so much you can get from analysing our poo in the so it says here they also hope to expand the range of tests to screen for illicit drug use, sexual transmitted infections, and the makeup of microbes in the gut, which means that the long-term development of a toilet such as this means that you could hunt down people that are using a lot of illicit drugs. You could find out if your partner's cheated on you or whether who gave you that sexual transmitted infection. I think it's excellent. I definitely think
I didn't take you to Chimichanga.
There is exactly. There's definitely some form of crime thriller waiting to happen based around
a toilet.
The investigating of a toilet.
The smart toilet.
A smart toilet. I think it's brilliant. And, obviously it's an excellent idea to have something consistently monitoring and, seeing how healthy you are by what comes out of you. If there are sudden spikes and, dips, then that's just you having a night out or you eating unhealthily. But if it's consistent...
There's a part of this article, it talks about the Bristol stool chart.
Yeah, I love the Bristol Stool because it just looks like something someone's made up for some people who aren't able to describe what their poo's like.
What their poo looks like, yeah, exactly. Someone who doesn't know the difference between a solid, a liquid, and a gas.
Yeah, exactly. But I consistently, I'd say throughout... So today, I've definitely had type 1, type 2, type 3. I woke up to type 4.
I was going to say this.
Well, I haven't yet had a 5, a 6, or a 7.
Okay, so what would you say would be more worrying? Because you can always rehydrate yourself. The fact that your poos look like Nesquik, that isn't so worrying to me because it feels like that's an indication I should drink some more water. And I'll have it at that. Maybe it won't make itself all the way down through the 35 feet of my intestinal tract. But at the same time, that's a very easy fix. Whereas we get to 5, 6, and 7, especially 7, that is something that you can't fix because it's back in the past. You've eaten the wrong format of food. You've ingested too much spicy food when usually you're a mild sort of, a mild spice at best. Or you've just neglected vegetables.
When I read the article, it's the first time I'd heard of the Bristol Stool scale. First
Really?
I've ever heard of it. Yeah, have you heard of that before?
I had, and I sort of thought that it might be something to do with the Glasgow scale, which is how to tell if someone's dead or in a coma. Which is it involves a collection of like nips and pinches and slaps and shouting in someone's ear, which is I think the earliest stage. If you can shout at someone and revive them, that's a very sort of Victorian way of doing medicine.
I remember I was working in a restaurant in Islington, and I'd banged my head. And I was, I continued to work. I banged my head pretty hard carrying down stock, bottles of water and things downstairs. And I then, was going around doing my job. I was the only waiter on because it was daytime. It was reasonably busy, but enough for me to cope with. And I remember looking at the screen, and the screen kind of started to blur, and like I was seeing two screens, but not to like a terrible extent, but there were definitely two screens. And I went over and I said to my boss, I was like, I feel a bit funny. And they were like, well, you'd be fine. Just keep going. And I was like, okay, cool.
Of course. So
I kept going, and I went up to a table and I was like, right, is there anything I can get you to drink? And they all looked at me and they were like, we have already given you our drink order about 20 minutes ago. And I was like, oh, okay.
Very Basil Fawlty, that sounds like.
I was like, no problem. I think I'm just, this isn't your fault. But I'm
you had to tell them that wasn't their fault, did you?
I was like, it's not. I was like, it's not your. Well, in my head, I'm going right. I shouldn't be working.
You weren't also speaking French at this point, were you?
No. I just had blood coming out of my ears and nose. No.
Yeah.
But I went to my boss and I said, I think you're going to have to come upstairs and do some work. I'm going to have to go to A&E. So she was begrudgingly was like, okay, fine. Sent me on my way to A&E. I think I waited, I don't know, maybe an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours in A&E for the doctor to then do some very fun tests where they click to my ears. Can you hear that? Yes, I can.
Yep.
Can you feel this stuff on your cheek? Yes, I can. Can you feel your head? Yup. And can you follow my finger? Yes. And he went, right, okay, you're fine. You're not just go home, maybe don't work. And I was like, could the lady at reception not have done that test for me?
The perfect time to decide how the NHS is run is while you're a patient there, I assume.
Oh, yeah.
As Boris Johnson most recently found out, I hope, at least.
Yeah, Boris Johnson recently discovered, how amazing the NHS is, and that the people that offered him such incredible, duty of care were both immigrants.
Yeah,
I think it was a Portuguese and someone from New Zealand.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
He needs to come back and start taking it seriously. But I just think he's incompetent to do his job. You listen to things that he's said in the past, and this man should not be representing anybody, let alone a country.
Well, the Times article that came out today was
I read that.
It was just realistic reading. It was realism, and
did you see the thing I shared? It was in February that he came out saying it was when the coronavirus, everybody was aware of it, and countries were slowly kind of shutting down, and much like Italy, we were behind everybody going forward.
Yeah.
And he said, when some countries' economy shuts down, there needs to be one shining light of economy that is not willing to back down. He describes it as a Clark Kent economy, taking off the glasses and the cape going, and Britain will be that economy going forward and staying strong.
Didn't see this.
It's revolting because basically what he's saying is that despite the World Health Organization's recommending that we go into lockdown, and his response was, no, we're not going to shut down our economy. We're going to be the only people thriving and we'll make money from it. A kind of Jacob Rees-Mogg kind of outlook.
He was probably also on one of his breaks because straight after, I think this February the 12th, so mid-February, he was somewhere in the countryside. It wasn't Chequers then, I don't think. But this was pre him announcing his engagement and his partner being pregnant. But he went on 3 holidays at the start of this year. The first in the Caribbean, the second in the countryside, and the third in Chequers. And then he got ill.
Well, was it you I was having the argument with? I was having an argument with somebody about the concept that a prime minister should not be allowed to go on holiday.
Wasn't me, but I like that sentiment.
It's the idea that if you've signed up to be the prime minister, so this is, you're going to give up a certain part of your life. Which is what we do when we work anyway.
And it's not for an indefinite amount of time. It's very clearly for 10 years at most.
But it's a huge responsibility which requires total decision making in almost every minute of every day, and you can never switch off. And it's also, if you made that part of the job by saying, you're not allowed to go on holiday, it is all consuming, and there is definitely there is structure in place if ever you needed to have a break, and there's also psychological, mental and physical support there for you. But if you presented the job like that, people like Boris Johnson wouldn't be capable, wouldn't be fit, and wouldn't put themselves up for it.
Well, if it makes it any more indigestible a fact, this is just off the top of my head from Adam Kay's book, but reading the diary of a junior doctor over the course of 6-7 years,
I've read that.
You will never go on holiday even if you've got it booked, because there will always be a staff shortage. There will always be an incapacity because of the middle management going on in the NHS. The consultant will be very, very reluctant to come in.
Well, it sounds awful to compare being a Prime Minister to then working within the NHS to then the job that I do, which is just running a venue. I just run a pub bar. But, I'm contracted for 48 hours. I'd never do that. I always do way more. If ever I'm not in the business, the owners or the boss or the operations manager will turn up and demand me be back in the business. I am always on call. If ever there's an issue, I'm always there. And if it was up to the people running it, I would wake up there and I'd fall asleep there because I'm the person most safe for that business to be running. There's not enough money to hire somebody to support me underneath. So, I feel that and I'm not allowed really to go on holiday, use the holiday that I use. And I'm frowned upon for using it. So as a result, I feel that Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, is not putting as much duty and care into his role of governing the country that I am just governing one small venue in Kentish Town. It's pathetic, isn't it? It really is revolting. Anyway, we should get back onto toilets. What toilet news do you have for us today, Alex?
The second part of toilet news is what did people do before toilet paper? This is part of National Geographic's illuminating expose of what we wipe our arses with. There are a few interesting implements. Basically a sponge with a stick on it. You hope the sponge is the end they're going to be using. This is in the Roman times. Now, what confused me about this first implement is that I thought I knew enough about that era to know that this implement is probably most famous for feeding Jesus when he was on the cross with some wine, which makes you think maybe that his crucifixion was more torturous than it already sounds.
It's interesting that it says these ancient devices consisted of a stick with a vinegar or salt water soaked sponge, which shows that even back then they had some understanding of sterilisation
and bathroom material. Sponge. Other examples, ceramic vessels. It said pessoi, an ancient Greek and Roman toilet paper equivalent consisting of small oval or circular pebbles or pieces of broken ceramic, which doesn't sound very conducive to a healthy bottom at all. But maybe if it's really smooth, it would. These are all things we should not rule out until we've tried.
Yeah, that's very true. But the if you think about the idea of using rocks and ceramic wiping your arse, which would create cuts and bruises, and then going, oh God, no, this isn't working for me, and then moving on to the vinegar and salt sponge.
Yeah, that's the wrong way around to do that, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. We've got another stick and cloth combination in China.
Now, stick and cloth, not a bad idea. I don't know why we have to use sticks. Maybe it's because other people, because King Henry VIII, you had that person whose job it was to specificicly wipe his arse. I think it might have been quite. I think it might. I think
he was quite well favoured, wasn't he? The king's arse wiper.
Was he?
Well, I suppose you'd have to be very. It's the king at his most vulnerable. You'd have to be very, very trusted, at least, to be able to perform that activity, if not reviled a little bit by your peers.
And I think with people like King Henry VIII, you'd have to have some form of level of secrecy, wouldn't you? Cause
yeah, definitely.
What's coming out of his arse would definitely be level 7 on the Bristol scale. Stool factor.
Very nice reincorporation there. I would say, definitely eunuched. So that he poses no threat to the many women that Henry has decided he wants. Right, so here it says 1393, rice-based toilet paper was mass-produced for the Chinese imperial family, which sounds like the first time it was sort of mass-produced at all. And that was a whole almost 500 years before it was the Western world's idea, which sounds pretty consistent with almost all Chinese inventions that end up in the Western world. I mean, the first thing that this article says, not to bring you back to this, Will, in a sort of upsetting way, but hundreds of millions of people around the world today, particularly in the Middle East and Asia, don't bother with toilet paper, preferring instead to finish their bathroom visit with a clean rinse of water. Now,
well, that's just not true. That's just absolutely not true. Bdays are not something that is consistent within European culture. Like, don't get me wrong, it definitely exists there, but I think it comes from in England.
Turkey's quite a big country, mate, and that's their go-to. And we've discussed that previously, the fact that Turkey not only has a thriving bidet industry, inbuilt into the toilet, may I add, but they're also one of the top producers of toilet paper in the world. So they're making I think, quite a savvy business decision. Yeah.
Turkey are not one of the top toilet paper. We found out it was the USA, then it was China. Not? Yeah, no, yeah. It was the
definitely
USA
in the top 10.
USA were the top, then China was the second, Canada closely followed, then it was Brazil, and then after that it was quite a lot of other countries, which clearly the proportion amount of toilet paper they were using dramatically dropped. Right, yes. So we've got number 1, United States, number 2, China, number 3, Japan, Germany, the Republic of South Korea, Brazil, Finland, Canada, Sweden, Italy. So Turkey did not make it in the top 10.
I stand corrected.
Just to clarify, well, also I thought Canada was higher up, so that's...
But that is a lucrative opportunity that Turkey should not, turn down. Any country that predominantly uses bidets, they could basically build their superstate on the back of people wiping their arse, especially after this fucking crisis. That's all I'm going to say.
I wonder whether or not somebody's going... Because, after you use a bidet, you then have to dry your arse.
It depends what the climate you're in.
You're joking? Do you just put your arse out the window?
Well, a lot of people wear swim shorts walking around hot countries, don't they? At least as a British tourist, that's what I've encountered.
Part of the cleaning is the drying of the arse.
Not if you've, jet washed it.
And if you're suggesting you then use your pants or your swimsuit to then dry your arse having just taken a shit and used a bidet...
No, I'm saying natural evaporation.
So you just walk around in the toilet waiting for your arse to naturally dry.
But you sort of favour your backside to the sun for the next...
And what happens when it's cool at night? I don't think you thought this through. I was just suggesting that potentially there's an industry out there for post-bidet wiping towels. That's a towel that's specifically designed... it's like wood is something that's kind of naturally antibacterial because it's coarse, it's perforated, and then bacteria goes into it with the water. It dries very quickly. As a result, the bacteria or whatever's on there dries quickly. So creating something coarse but it's also comfortable to dry your arse with.
Basically birch bark.
Or just a hand dryer for your arse might be a better idea.
This is a good idea. The bidet that dries you. Okay, so this is the part of the podcast where we talk about a topic that is predetermined. And this week, the topic that we've chosen to talk about is toilets that we have been the either renter of or owner of in part. So,
owned or rented toilets where which we have used having lived in that. It's hard to just describe, actually.
What's the most notable one you've thought of? Well,
you always grow to love the toilets that are in your house because they're places where you feel comfortable. You make them how you want them to. You find solace, relaxation, meditation there. This has been the case in everywhere I've lived except for one toilet, which was when I was living in High Barnet. And it was all because of an evil, corrupt landlord who once, when I messaged saying, there's this wrong with the property, it was snowing outside. As a result, it was snowing inside. There was snow in there was a converted garage which was made into a bedroom. We woke up one day and there was snow in his room, freezing. Our pipes froze. We messaged our landlord being like, you really need to do something about this. The living conditions that you're presenting, that we're paying £2,200 a month for, is almost uninhabitable. And her response was, well, your rent only just covers my mortgage, so if I do something about it, I won't be able to pay my mortgage. I respond being like, you even mentioning your mortgage is information which is not relevant to me asking you to repair. So, she was a crook. She was a nasty, nasty person.
Horrible.
But, for example, horrible person. But, it's a classic London landlord, isn't it? We viewed the property in summer and it was beautiful. There was skylights in the kitchen. You had the kitchen and then you had this nice little back room, which was like a wet room. It's lovely. It was this, wall tiled shower. It was wonderful. And then you had this lovely downstairs toilet. It was nice. The upstairs was a very kind of traditional toilet. So there were two toilets, a bath upstairs, and then this wet room downstairs. It was a great kind of it had a lot of potential. We viewed the property in summer. Excellent, great, high expectations. We arrive in winter and the building was not made to survive the elements.
Was it made of aluminium or something?
The kitchen was an extension which was clearly done shoddily, and at the end of the kitchen, which is a weird place to put a wet room, at the end of the kitchen, we entered. The property had been vacant for just over a month, and you put your foot down on the tiles, and you can feel water. You can see water.
Like a paving slab that's kind of come loose. Oh, that's awful.
So we call up the landlord. The agent that's showing us round sees it, and she goes, "Oh, well, it wasn't like that when we went." And I was like, "What? When was the last
condensation.
time?"
It's condensation.
Yeah, exactly. We managed to get a contractor around, and the contractor looks at the shower wet room and is like, "Oh yeah, no. So whoever's built this has basically just built it on wood that done no form of treating. So you've got wood panels, and then what they've done is then just put slabs over the wood panels, which is the tiles that you're walking on. So that moisture that's coming up is just rotting wood. So you can't use this shower." Which means that this property we've just moved into, which has 5 bedrooms, which is there's 6 of us living there, has just immediately on the first day we've lost one of the showers.
Wow.
So we then talk to the landlord.
Sounds like a bunker that's been sort of built within the sort of decking of a ship.
It was pathetic, and it also meant that it was freezing cold and there was no insulation, which meant that our kitchen was always freezing. We closed the door and we had to tape it up, which then we were given no compensation, no reduced rent. There was no. Basically, she said, "I can't afford to get it fixed, so I'm not going to get it fixed. You signed your contract, you're living there, and that's the situation. There's nowhere in the contract that says you need to have a wet room shower in your kitchen. So therefore, I'm not going to do anything about it. Just make sure you tape it up." So we tape it up. Quite funny, when we left the property, she included all of the mold and everything in that wet room as being taken off our deposit.
Did you get that back?
Yeah. It took 2 years. We had to go through an independent adjudicator.
Fuck me.
And every toilet, just because it was inequipped, there was no ventilation, despite it saying in our contract there needed to be ventilation in all of our bathrooms. It was consistent issues. I remember calling her up, and I just said, I would really love to have a tour of your house, because I can't imagine it's anywhere near the same standard that you're renting it out to us 5. It was 6 of us, actually. And if you're living in a place where you've got a mold-ridden wet room right next to your kitchen, you've got these. It was really horrible. And she was a nasty, nasty person. The property was 13 St Albans Road. I would not recommend anybody living there.
Fantastic. Do you want to name the landlord, or do you want to keep litigation free?
I think, we did end up going to small claims court and we got all of our money back.
Good.
So the issue has the issue has kind of been and gone, but it doesn't take away the years that we lived there.
True. Probably all the mold you've inhaled.
Under awful circumstances, yeah.
This is a direct message to all landlords. We are the renter generation. It'd be really helpful if you got the poisonous gas that the walls are creating in our flats to go. Yours sincerely, Talking Toilets podcast.
So what toilet have you had the joy of living with in your life that you want to talk about today?
So this one, it's 2 toilets.
God damn it, Alex. How do you do this?
It's the same house. Don't worry.
Okay, good. To be fair, I spoke about different rooms in one house. That's fine.
This is a very similar situation. There was mould all over this house, but it was in small quantities. The most mould was actually in my bedroom, which was it's a very charming house. I've got nothing really bad to say about it because I was only there for a limited time, and I didn't spend very much time other than sleeping right next to the wall with the most mould, which also sort of crept onto my bed sheets eventually. But I've got nothing bad to say about that. It was fine. I think I smoked myself out of dying from mold poisoning. Yeah, during that time. Yeah. I think so. So the toilets in 133 Wyvern Road in Bdays, which is in Cardiff, when I was at drama school. This building had been through a bit of a renovation. The toilets were an ex-toilet, basically. They were identical but mirrored. So you would get up the staircase from the front door, which was like no hallway or anything. The front door was literally it was the road. You'd walk straight past my bedroom, straight up the stairs. You've got 2 identical toilets but mirrored. On the left we had the boys' toilet, and on the right we had the girls' toilet, because it was 2 boys and 2 girls living in the house. In the boys' toilet, the shower curtain was it was from the Edinburgh Dungeon. I think a friend bought it for me when I used to work there. And it's sort of like a white curtain with 2 red hand marks sort of dripping blood down it, which is just amazing. I loved it.
Love it.
I don't know what happened to it. I think we binned it, obviously, because it was minging. But it had a sink with a little cabinet above the sink with just guy stuff in it, just guy stuff around the toilet. And then the other toilet, their shower curtain was a Facebook page with a sort of a perspex bit that you could look through, which you could put your face in. I love novelty shit. I'm quite bad when it comes to kit shit, and I never walked into that bathroom, obviously, while someone was showering, because it's 2 girls that I don't really know very well, and would have been quite weird. But I kind of regret not at least seeing someone stand in the toilet, stand in the bath, and just have their face there while they were showering. But when it came to parties, we'd put like an A4 sheet of paper as in boys and girls on the side, and it worked fucking well. And it's kind of the best party toilet setup that I've ever had. Like I think we hosted 3 big parties over the course of being at Royal Bash. We lived there for 2 years. It was great. I had many a gorgeous sing-song in that toilet while showering. We often found ourselves cleaning our teeth at the same time, so we'd meet in the hallway at the mouth of the door and sort of have a little conversation. Just a very social arrangement, and possibly...
It sounds perfect for a sitcom.
Yeah, 100%. Pooing you, pooing me. Yeah. But it was possibly the most comfortable I felt, sort of in very close proximity to another toilet.
At the end of the last podcast, we did something which I thought was quite nice, which is where something we hoped for the future.
Oh, yes, we did. Yeah, true. No, we did.
And I thought that was a nice way in this kind of world of uncertainty just to kind of end on a bit of hope.
Yeah.
I think for me, especially with me running in Hampstead Heath and not having a toilet and understanding how valuable that is,
yeah, I
kind of hope that, as well as recognising nurses and things like that, recognising even simple jobs as like toilet attendants, kind of giving people like that slightly more respect, whether or not that's a financial nod or just a kind of more glamorising what their role is.
The only thing with that, and I'll say this just in a sort of socially, like, sort of historical sense, we need to be careful that we don't, yes, we glamorise it, but maybe we don't sort of ostracise those people by doing so. If you have a toilet attendant, maybe let's definitely not have a uniform. Let's definitely not have a way that we sort of recognise that person is maybe of a different caste because they're wearing different sorts of clothes or they're performing different sorts of roles.
I understand what you're saying. I don't massively know if I agree with it. I feel that the way I would like to see the structure of these kind of jobs change would be a public understanding of the importance of being bacterially and virally, vulnerable in a sanitised environment. Meaning that if I am running to go to the Victoria toilets and there's a sign outside saying closed for half an hour for cleaning, I don't go, oh God, this is awful. Why can't they clean while I'm in there? Because at the moment, you have this poor person kind of cleaning each toilet as you go in and out. You have somebody kind of mopping the floors with a wet floor sign down while people are kind of pissing.
Yeah.
There's no care. There's no kind of love of the job. This person isn't getting any respect. It's literally that person is invisible to us. As if anything, they're a nuisance if they're trying to do their job while we're trying to do the act of what we're there for. So even some kind of structural understanding of going, this is a human being who is paid to do a certain job and we're very happy for that person to do there. So let's give them the time and the air around that and the respect around it to be able to do that job properly. And just even small changes like that, I think would be beneficial in the long term, not just for us as the users, but for the employees.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. I'd say, having read what I've read today from, the report that was in the Times, I am so aware that the governments that we vote for, they aren't a fair representation of the people that live in the country. At least they're not becoming it after a vote happens. There needs to be some sort of way that we can change the system. Many people think it's voting change or voting sort of, new voting systems in place, but it is more than that. It's the way we litigate and it's the way that we process people's litigation.
Well, at the moment, I feel people are voting for fear. They vote for, they vote for the fear that they're sold. So whether or not they're sold the fear of immigration being the issue, which was what Boris Johnson's rhetoric was all about, him saying that it's the immigrants that are putting on the strain economically on the NHS, which we all know is just complete bullshit. It's all lies. But for some reason, he was able to sell that and it won. God knows how. But it's because of the way they sold the fear and people were afraid of it, therefore they voted for it. They also managed to somehow target the lower class by saying, the fear of the money that you can't see being spent. It's very dangerous. And instead of us voting for fear, we should be voting for hope and voting for want. And I almost don't feel the need for political parties, but then I'm a left-wing wanky socialist where I just feel we should all be looking after each other to the best outcome. We should all.
Well, our political parties haven't really been doing the best recently, have they?
Not at all.
So it's easy to see why you would be disenchanted, at least.
Well, thank you for listening out there. Thank you very much. We know that this is a bit of rough and ready remote recording, so apologies if there's any kind of quality issues you're experiencing. And if you have enjoyed us, please give us a like, give us a follow, show us some appreciation, or if you have any feedback, please let us know. Look up Talking Toilets podcast and let us know how you think.
Any direct inquiries, if you want to pay us any money, get in contact with us discreetly at talkingtoiletspodcast@gmail.com.
Yep.
And of course, if nobody does want to pay us any money, that's fine as well. Just please spread the news somehow. Tell anyone you know that talking about toilets is good for the soul.
Right. And as always, keep flushing.
Keep flushing.